Welcome to this afternoon session during the presentation of the Combined Transport Report 2022. This afternoon we have two sessions. One is on innovations in combined transport, in which we will have a small video from Meva on their vision on on innovations, and then we have a presentation from Dassault on what they are doing on innovation and on how they do it with their customers. And in a second part, we are going a bit deeper on topics which are also very close to our heart, is on cargo loading and cargo security in a combined transport context, and actually which continues on work that has been done by both organizations already in the past. So let's kick off. Maybe there is first a small video which explains the vision from Ermeva on how they deal with innovation and what they think the wagon of the future is going to be.
The share of intermodal transport has been growing substantially in the last couple of years and will keep growing in the next couple of years. Ermeva will follow and support that trend by investing in intermodal railcars and additional equipment for the industry. The future of rail freight is driven by digitization. It will bring more safety, more performance. Digitization will help us to improve transport visibility. It will enable us to improve the turnaround time, trigger condition-based maintenance, and predictive maintenance. Considering the EU Green Deal targets, rail freight has a card to play, and Ermeva will support our industry. With more than 3,000 intermodal railcars in our fleet, we will be well over 5,000 intermodal railcars in the next 3 years, and we'll keep investing into that segment in order to provide safer and more reliable supply chain for our customers.
So this was a small impression from Ermeva, thanks to for the video. One of the topics which I retained was indeed that the transparency is going to be one of the major topics, and I'm pretty sure that also Dassault will and Ms. Koen will come back on that topic. And giving her the floor, if I please.
Thank you so much. My brief session is going to be looking at transformation of rail and are we ready for it? I'm going to start by kind of giving you a brief introduction of Dassault Systems, and then followed by a kind of look into what are the trends that we're seeing in the industry. What are those trends, particularly when we talk about the modal share, combined transport, net zero targets and sustainability? What does the rail industry need to do in order to meet that demand and be more kind of efficient to be ready for that transformation? So just a quick introduction on Dassault Systems. We've been around since the early 80s. We're a spin-off from Dassault Aviation. Today, we are one of the largest software firms in Europe. We have 20,000 employees and 195 locations around the globe. We are very much an R&D innovative company. We have 69 labs scattered around the globe with our headquarters in Paris. The 300,000 customers that we have, and many of them are rail customers, are are across 11 industries. So that puts us in a really good position to be able to leverage learnings, best practice, experience, and technology that's happening in other industries where they are going through transformations, and to see how they can be relevant for the rail industry. We've been in rail for about 20 years. We are involved in the design and manufacture, so the life cycle of trains and fleet and infrastructure, and also on the operation side as well. So the planning, the optimization, and the scheduling of trains. So my session today is going to be really focused on the operations planning and scheduling side of the business. So supply chain disruptions, really exacerbated by COVID, but continued, and obviously for the war, the energy crisis. It's not the beginning, it's not the middle, it's not even the end. We're going to continue to see this. And rail is at the center of being able to help drive and continue that delivery of goods. Now, when we look at some of the numbers in the US, your railroads in the US in the first quarter of this year were providing a significant amount of rail. And let me get to my notes, because I'm a little bit not able to see my notes here. But just to give some stats, there were in the region of, so this quarter, the most amount of cargo that was lifted in the first quarter compared to any quarter in previous history. So rail being the center of this, combined with some of the trends that we're seeing, so resurgence of rail-based transport, really driven by net zero targets. So whichever way you look at it, rail is the most efficient form of transport by gross tons per kilometre. Whether it's road to rail, air to rail, or sea to rail, there's significant CO2 reductions that can be had. And then, of course, the congestions on the road. I think the picture speaks 1,000 words, and we can see that, whether it's passenger cars on the road going to, or even trucks on the road, the significant savings to go via rail. And, of course, some of the mandates that are being driven in various countries, EC mandating a shift to rail freight of 30% by 2030 and 50% by 2050. So this slide is really kind of says it all, DB Cargo, it's a publicly available slide, but essentially if their customers are able to shift some from their modal transport to rail, they themselves will help them to achieve their own net zero targets. And then when we see some of the kind of forecasts for the future of rail freight, 30% growth to 2030, for road to rail, and also the statistics of 52 trucks that are equivalent to 2 carriages of rail, and we know that rail carriages tend to be significantly longer. Not to mention the driver shortage of truckers on the road of about 2.6 million globally. And then when we look at investment in infrastructure is significant across the globe. So the U.S. Federal Reserve agreed a package of $80 billion. In Europe, you're seeing initiatives for road to rail. You're seeing also investments, 1.35 billion from France into rail infrastructure. In India, the national logistics policy agreed to $715 billion into rail infrastructure by 2030. And when you look at Australia and New Zealand, you're seeing more infrastructure investments in rail than ever before. So 100 billion for Australian dollars for new rail investments. So, there's a lot of investment going on. There's this huge shift that's happening. There's net zero targets that are on everybody's mind. But all is not rosy on the rail front, right? So we know about the strikes that are happening. We're all very familiar with them. And, it's not all about money. Right, in the US, as mentioned, there was practically an enormous shutdown in the US rail segment. And in fact, the labour negotiations went as high up as the Federal Reserve Emergency Board, where then they managed to negotiate a pretty good pay package, which was 25% rise over the next 5 years, with 14.1% in the kind of upfront. So you'd think, okay, job done. We've got our money. We can stop negotiating. Well, absolutely not. What they're looking for, and they're continuing to negotiate, is on a better work-life balance, and they want fairness. So in the US, for example, dare I say it, it's a bit like working on an animal farm. So basically, a rail worker will get a call, a rail driver will get a call within a few days, so very little notice, to drive. And they only get paid when they drive. If they don't drive, they don't get paid. So you can be sure they better have a good relationship with their boss. And that's the problem, that fairness, that structured approach, it doesn't exist there. So for them, it really is about a better work-life balance, taking into account their preferences. Obviously, very complex when you're talking about crew planning. You have to ensure they are the right qualification at the right place at the right time with the right fleet, right? So it's a really complex puzzle, and we're helping with many rail companies around the world on their crew scheduling and planning. But for that modal shift to happen, for companies to change their modes of delivery, rail needs to be attractive. Plus the competition we're seeing from a change in the business models for many companies, CMA, CGM, Maersk, they're all going into rail, right? And there's bound to be some disruptors coming in as well. So rail attractiveness depends on operational efficiency. And rail has to ask themselves, do they have the infrastructure in place in order to meet that demand? Because in the meantime, they're going to have to optimize based on current capacity. So rail companies are on the hook to make sure that they have excellent service quality, so having to minimize delays, have rolling stock in good condition, also to minimize overall transit time. So I mentioned before that actually one of the kind of roadblocks, if you like, or black holes are the terminals in yards, which are often kind of not considered part of the end-to-end network and not and do not have that planning that's needed and scheduling within the terminal. So we'll talk a little bit about that in the next few slides. And then, of course, cost control, absolutely important to ensure that costs are kept at a minimum, but especially with as we've been talking earlier about the energy crisis that we're seeing across the world. So at Dassault Systems, we've developed what we call a business capability map, which is a representation of all planning, scheduling, and operations activity within a rail company. And this can be applicable to both passenger and to freight. So essentially, we're looking at 3 segments: above rail, below rail, and off network, for service operators, infrastructure, and terminal operators. And with that, you also see their subjects. So it could be your vehicle, your fleet, your crew, your network. And then the time horizons in which each of these subjects or activities are performed. So if we look at strategic, we're looking at long-term, what is the assessment of the availability in the long term, and how much do we need to provide in terms of capacity. You have tactical, which is then planning for that long term based on available capacity, kind of planning in an anonymous way. Then pre-operative and operational are more short-term. Pre-operative being, okay, for a given time, short-term time horizon, what is my available capacity? And then operation is to actually carry that out. So whatever you've planned in your pre-op needs to be carried out, but continuously monitoring your performance and your operations. And then finally, on your post-operative, it's looking back and seeing, okay, how did I perform? Your reporting and analytics on all the information available. So we consider this like a Gray's Anatomy of the rail industry for this segment. It's taken from a framework, a reference framework in the industry, and it's basically works as a taxonomy or a semantic. And this is kind of something that not only do we use as a diagnostic with our customers, but also as a referential for us to develop our own products further. So we've worked with many customers across these different areas. Now, the most important thing to note, and one of the kind of key challenges that we see, is around day of operations, right, on the short-term planning for unplanned disruptions, right? And how do you rapidly assess and provide that coordinated response that you need? Now, the most important thing here is that when you're talking about these unplanned disruptions, you need to have a coordinated response because, in fact, these vertical and horizontal activities are not discrete activities. They are concurrent. They happen at the same time. So if there's fleet and crew planning, you need to also plan the network with it and so on. So these are not independent, and therefore it's so important when we talk about digitalization that you have an integrated approach, that these are not siloed systems, which is what we typically see in the rail industry. Similarly, as mentioned, yard planning is another area that is one that is often left without any real kind of planning and scheduling. So looking at some research we did on one country where 80% of the network disruptions were due to trains not getting onto the rail track because of the delays in their yards. So, whether it's configuration, occupation, or shunt planning. And similarly, terminal planning, same sort of challenges, are pretty much a kind of black box. There's a lot of, obviously, activities that happen within terminals that are currently pretty manual and really need to be kind of digitalized. And finally, one last thing I wanted to talk about was the rail network sharing. Now, rail network sharing is a very, very complex approach. It can be very political. We were talking about it during the break, especially when you've got multiple companies, multiple countries, even. Multiple countries and countries that have to come together in order to share the same assets and have their own kind of challenges around ensuring delivery. So, assessing kind of what their supply chain assets are, and at the same time ensure an equitable outcome, right? And that equitable outcome is only going to happen once countries and organizations come together and agree that. So there's usually agreements, contracts, there's paths that have been agreed up front, so that their movement of whatever bulk goods they happen to be moving can be moved. So any attempt here to create a solution before those discussions have been had or that agreement has been hashed out is going to be suboptimal. And especially when you're working with fragmented rail networks and you're trying to optimize on the back of that fragmented rail network, it's going to be suboptimal. So if I can give you a very quick example, this is a dynamic path, for example, a coal train. It's kind of looking at ensuring that we adhere to the agreements that have been put in place, adhere to, say, an operator who's submitting some paths and has a specific time frame for ensuring their paths are met, and kind of looking at how can we, as a planner, optimize that path and honor the fixed paths that are already in place. So during this process, you import the orders, you then error check for that file to make sure it's all validated. Once error checked, you then create the journeys. Then those journeys would then be submitted, and you see if there are any conflicts with existing journeys, and if so, we're going to run the deconflicting optimizer, and then if all is well and the KPI is 100% approved, then we'll go ahead and accept the orders and give the signal. So just a very quick demo where, as a planner, I've already accepted some journeys, and my journey order fulfillment is 100%. So I've just received an order of around 75 journeys requests, and I'm going to upload those. Uploading those, remember there's information in the forms which are about their preferences and some of the agreements that they have in place. I can see that the form the Excel file is good. There's no errors. It's all pretty good. So I can now validate that and add it into the existing journey planner. So I validate that form, and I'm going a bit fast here, but you can see that for the new paths, there's no service ID. And you will also see that journey order fulfillment has gone to red, right? So it's at 50%. All the journeys that are listed for that new set of or requests will be shown on the right-hand side. So you'll see the journeys that have been asked to be performed. And I can choose to either accept, deny, or withdraw. But in fact, before I do any of that, I'm going to create the journey. So I'm going to see how it fits in to the existing path before kind of going ahead and accepting. And what you can see is huge conflicts, right? These are huge conflicts of this new order with existing paths. And that's what you see in the ETG. So a lot of red lines that are saying there's a lot of conflicts here. So we can't accept as is, right? Because you're going to have trains that are on the same track at the same time, as you can see from the Gantt chart below. So there's a lot of conflicts that are happening here. And I can see kind of where those conflicts are. I could, if I chose to, manually amend those, but that would be a massive task to try and achieve. But you can see the ones with the red outline on the Gantt chart is the ones where you've got trains on the same track. So clearly not an acceptable situation. So with that, I can then run the optimizer, so the deconflicting optimizer. The idea being is that we respect the fixed journeys. We try to bring in the flexible paths that have just been requested into the ETG. And ideally, I'm aiming for 100% order fulfillment. So looking at kind of the fact that it's in fact, my paths have been cleared, so the conflictings have been cleared, and now I have a journey order fulfillment of 100%, and I can now go ahead and let the operator know, and that we've accepted the journeys. So essentially, as shown, imported the orders, validated the file, created journeys caused conflicts, and then from conflicts you went to accept orders. So in summary, what we are seeing is that huge modal shift to rail, which is being driven by kind of net zero targets across the globe, as well as movement of the supply chain. You've also seen investments that are happening around the globe. Rail needs to transform to meet that demand. Capacity needs to increase, and having an integrated approach for planning, scheduling, and operation services is very important towards that drive for better services. And then, of course, collaboration across the industry, not only across rail itself, but also across the other modes of transport. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this insight in what Dassault is bringing here, or is offering. Are there any questions from the people here on this? If not, then maybe I have one, maybe a stupid one. But what are then the typical customers for these services? Is this network operators, or is this more?
Yeah, I mean, we have customers across, both network operators, depends, right? So in the US, you have combined network operators with rail companies. So companies like Canadian National, United Services, Pacific Services, in Australia, Kiwi Rail, DB, and in Europe, DB Cargo, and so on. So huge range of, depends on where you are, but you have also infrastructure obviously separate in Europe versus other countries. But yeah, we've been helping quite a lot. Yeah.
thank you very much for providing these insights. If there are no questions, I would say we go on. If there are any questions, whoops. Sorry. We head on to the topic on loading and cargo loading and securing in a combined transport context, a topic which has been, let's say, at the heart of as well UIC as UIRR over the past years. There has been quite some evolutions, and again, there is also some new let's say policies and everything coming on there. We have in the next few minutes we have two presentations. We have a presentation from our, let's say, a intervention from UIRR from Charlie on the harmonization of loading rules, specifically as let's say as a follow-up or as a consequence of the Great Belt incident some time ago, and then followed by a presentation, or actually two presentations, one of Eric Lambert on safety and on the legal framework and on how UIC loading guidelines actually are helping on fulfilling that, and then also given a testimonial by him. It was not initially foreseen to be given by him, but the person did not get here in time, from CFL Terminals on how they are dealing with load safety and what as well processes, technical innovations they are developing there. So I would give the floor to UIRR, to Charlie, on harmonization of loading guidelines as a result of the Great Belt incident.
Thank you very much. First of all, I want to say, as industry association, likewise UIC, we are fighting to have standards, to have harmonization, not only the interoperability, which is in good hands with the ERA, but really harmonization on all the standards, the technical standards, the operational standards. And we did a study together with UIC last year where we compared the existing standards in the IRS of UIC, in Sensenelec, in ERA, in ISO, and we discovered that unfortunately some standards were not compatible with the other standards, and this of course is not good for a standard if you have a second standard which is not compatible. So we tackled this, we presented it to the Commission at RASCOP, and I think this was a very intense exercise we did together, and there was a great result. Concerning JNS, there were two JNSs in the last years, one in Italy on the LL brakes, where in Italy it was decided, as there was a new boss of the NSA, that they had to reduce the speed of the trains by 100% in some cases, by 50% in other cases. But here we could see that there was a very good collaboration with the NSA in Italy. We could talk about all the topics, and we find a solution in the urgent procedure, and now it goes to the normal procedure. It will take 1 or 2 years, but at least we have a common target. We have settled down everything. So it was very good because the risk assessment was made on all parts of the chain. In Denmark, I must say it was a bit different because the assessment made by Denmark was to say there are issues on the wagons, there are issues on the loading units, there are issues in the terminals, there are issues on the controlling, and there was no issue on the infrastructure side. So this was very astonishing because we thought that the accident mainly was provoked by the very strong wind forces, so that the infrastructure at least should have been involved. And of course we have to avoid to create precedents here. That's why we insist on also a risk assessment on the infrastructure side. But what all this shows is that all the stakeholders in the chain have to work together, and that NSA and ERA and the sector has to work together. And with this cooperation, you can achieve results. Of course, it was very sad that on the bridge in Denmark, we had 15 fatalities, and 2 years later, with an incident, we had no fatalities, but again, the loading unit with a strong wind again was unfortunately not where it should be on the wagon anymore, and our assessment was physics, was very clear. The winds, the forces of the winds were the main reason for this incident. Unfortunately, this is not shared by the member state Denmark and the NSA there, but we have to talk to them. I think there was also a visit off the bridge, and you know, when you enter a bridge, if there is no aerodynamic device on the side, no walls, then you enter a complete new type of infrastructure, and this was not really considered. So our conclusion was that in future you cannot just say you ban all the pocket wagons from the bridge if you have not done the right risk assessments on the other points. So that's why we are a little bit disappointed about the first outcome, but we will continue our strong fight in order to assess also the risks through the winds on the infrastructure side. We accept that there are risks in the terminals, on the wagons, for the loading units, and we will do the utmost to mitigate these risks, but we cannot accept that a biggest part of the risk is not assessed at all.
So, thank you. So I would like also to add something, as Charlie has, has said, we have launched a study for comparing the different standards in usage in combined transport. The study was, the name was Cactus, for the people that know it about this. So it was a Cactus study, so comparing and analyzing the standards in combined transport usage and standards, Cactus. And so afterwards, so we have presented, as Charlie said, to the RASCOP and to the Commission, and the second step is ongoing for the time being. So we are working with the ERA, within the ERA, with different associations. UIRR, UIP is also a member of this working group, UIC, of course, and we are working on the TSI specific for the combined transport. So also something very interesting. So the next step, taking into account all the job we have done, all the work done during this analysis, we are then working on TSI, and so coming on the next step for today, the UIC loading guidelines. We have also proposed, and we are in discussion with the ERA for taking the UIC loading guidelines as a AMOC for the TSI combined transport. So that's the situation of today. So it's ongoing work. But for the time being, with ERA and the collaboration of all the association, we are on I will say on the right way for harmonization and standardization of the loading rails.
Right track, yes.
On track.
And indeed, for those who maybe not know, AMOC is the acceptable means of compliance. So it's more or less a, let's say, the voluntary standard developed by the industry themselves, which moves up to a level to a kind of accepted. It's not a law. It's actually acceptable mean, as it says, by policy that been developed by the industry, which shows that the industry itself can do its homework without there being necessary a lot of legislation. So it's a very good example of what we are doing there. And actually, this brings us to the basis with the loading guidelines themselves, which were the basis of the AMOC and the work that UIC is doing on that one. And therefore, I give again the floor to Eric, who knows all about it because he has been the guy heavily involved in that one.
Thank you. Yes. So about the UIC loading guidelines. So the first, it's about the current legislative framework. It's very important to understand this. It's very important to take this into account. So what is the legislative framework? So you can find it out in the Directive 2016-798. They have then been edicted on the 11 May 2016. And this directive is about railway safety. And I took out from this directive the three principal aspects, articles about the safety. And what is very, very important not to forget, that's this number 7. So the main actors in the Union rail system, infrastructure managers and railway undertaking, should bear full responsibility for the safety of the system, each for their own part. So this sentence is very important, because then we said that clearly the railway undertaking is fully responsible for the safety of the wagon, the loading. It's very important with this article. Nevertheless, it's also said that without prejudice of the responsibility of the infrastructure manager and the railway undertaking for developing and improving railway safety, the other actors, so all the actors involved in the logistics chain, so the other actors such as entities, and so I will not go to the details, so they have also should not be precluded from assuming responsibility for their products, services, and processes. So with these two articles in this directive, it's clearly mentioned that each actor is responsible for its own work, but nevertheless, infrastructure manager for their side and railway undertaking for running the trains and the wagon are fully responsible in the end. And it was clearly mentioned from the very beginning during the GNS procedure after the Great Bill Bridge accident in Denmark. It was the first sentence we heard from UIRR and from the National Safety Authority from Denmark. They said, don't forget, you are responsible. So that was the first sentence we have heard. So this is really important not to forget. So railway undertaking ultimately are responsible for the safety of the transport, even if each actor is responsible for his own work. And then we have the number 9, also important. So each railway undertaking, infrastructure manager, and entity in charge of maintenance should ensure that its contractors and other parties implement risk control measures. Clearly said, we had to do audit, we had to do controls, we have to control our subcontractor about the measure that they have, the risk assessment, the risk procedure that they have taken into account. It's really also important. We have also the right as railway undertaking, not only the right but the duty also to control our subcontractor. It's important not to forget this. Next slide. So that was the framework. And when we speak about safety, what is the regulation? What is the rule? So that's the Euronorm 12195-1, published in 2011. So that's the Euronorm about the safety, how to lash and how to secure the loading. So this European standard is applicable to the design or securing methods by blocking or lashing or both combined for securing the loads for the surface transport by road vehicles and also rail. That's the Euronorm 12195-1. And I took out from this Euronorm the 3 wonderful pictures. You can see here the difference between the road, the rail, and combined transport. So, for example, on the road, from the left to the right, on the road, the lashing, so the securing of the loads has to be assured with 0.8 G on the front, going forward, and 0.5 G going backward. Of course, with a truck, you don't drive backyard. From the rail, as the unit can run both direction. It's 1G in one direction and also 1G in the other one. So you imagine the difference, 0.8 or 0.5, and the other side, 1. And in combined transport, it should be 1 for both sides because we are using the train, and 0.3 for up and down, and 0.5 for slippage, and 0.6 for the tipping. So that's very important, and that also should be known by all the shippers. The problem we have today is that when the loading unit is coming to the shippers, they don't know each time if this loading unit will be driven with the train or with the road. I don't know. So that's also difficult. The difficulty we have today, and also not forget that when the loading is finished on the loading side, so they close the door, they have a seal, and we cannot open. We don't have to open the door afterward. We have to take into account, so to think that the loading is correct, because we have no possibilities to open the door and make control. We could open the door and control the loading only if we have a doubt. For example, the loading has moved and is then pushing against the plane, for example. It could be a doubt that we have, or when we are handling the unit in a terminal so that we have a movement, so the loading unit is not correctly loaded. That it could be a doubt. And then also, if we have a doubt that the loading is not correctly made, we have to ask the transport company for opening the door. We cannot open the door only without having the agreement. So it's really complicated. We have to think that everything is okay. That's a principle. That's the problem we have in combined transport today. So that's very important. That's the reason why also in this directive they are speaking about controlling audit from all the actors. Do not hesitate as railway undertaking to make control in the terminals that you are partner, that you are working with, to assure that the safety management system, the SMS of the terminals it's okay. It's everything. It's taking into account. It's important because in end effect, the railway undertaking will be responsible. We are all responsible, right? Next. So about then the UIC loading guidelines. What is this? The UIC guidelines, loading guidelines. It's a document. So we have two documents, and so it's written, edited by an expert group within the UIC, and this expert group is composed of loading advisors from UIC members who meet regularly to maintain the high quality of the document and considering any market developments. So when we have new technologies, new loading unit coming on the market, so they are taking this into account regularly with meetings. The latest version of this loading guidelines is dated from April 2022. Let me say it's not so old. April 22, and considers the recommendation made by the RRGNS procedure, which was set up after the Great Bell Bridge accident in January 2019, as Charlie said before. So we have then the new version, taking into account the recommendation made by the ERA. Also important information, the guidelines are available free of charge on the UIC website. Free of charge for everybody on the UIC website, and also in the 3 official languages of our association. It will say English, French, and German. So I have also provided here the link after today workshop, of course, all the participants, you will receive a copy of the presentation, and of course you will have then this one also. And for me, last but not least, very important, safety is everyone's business, always and everywhere. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eric. Those who are really interested in these loading guidelines, there was what we call a deep dive into loading by the loading group. It was presented last Friday, and full documentation on what was being presented there, and the different appendixes in those loading guidelines were explained in detail. And so the presentation of that deep dive will be available within a few days. Once we have made the pack ready for publication, then you will also see there, and then you can see what is happening. And it's indeed, if I'm not wrongly informed, it's an that's been updated every year, even the loading guidelines. So it's really up to date to the latest standards and latest knowledge within the sector. And actually, it's one of the most successful things that UIC is providing, and which is being followed by very, very closely. So there, if you go to the UIC website in loading group, you will be able to find more details. So this is a bit, let's say, what's being developed from a, although not really theoretical point of view, but of course because the experts are practitioners. But to see what is happening really in a terminal context on load safety and loading, there's another presentation from Eric, who is going to give some more insights on how CFL intermodal terminal is dealing with those aspects and what they are actually doing from a practical point of view. I saw the presentation, and you will see some very nice examples on what is happening there. Normally, it should have been a person from CFL intermodal himself, but he couldn't make it due to practical obstructions. Eric, so the floor is again to you.
Yes, thank you. So sorry to have. Yes. Goodbye. Thank you. Yes. So a presentation of our intermodal terminal in Bettembourg, Luxembourg, well placed within a multidisciplinary infrastructure. So the terminal is such; it's not the only infrastructure we have in a logistic chain, but it's included in our logistic center. The next slide. So okay. So we have here the picture of all the actual connection we have from from Luxembourg. So we have then really a connection to all through Europe, from Poland to Spain, and we are also working on other connection coming soon, as Romania and also south of France is not here, and also a project that we are working on. It's going more to the north. From Poznan, I see my colleague from LTG Cargo, and I hope that in the next days we will come back with a new connection from Lithuania to through Poland to Bettembourg and then to Spain, because the market need is there, and it could be important. So that, as you can see, all these connections are running through our terminal in Bettembourg. So the Bettembourg terminal is really a hub where all the trains connection can be used, so that on the market, for the market, the customer are ordering a transport from Sweden directly to Spain, and it doesn't matter for them which train we will use, which connection we will use. They have one partner from Sweden to Spain. That's exactly what they need, and so that's the heart of work we have today in Luxembourg. So here you have the picture of our logistic center, the Eurohub Sud, as I mentioned before. The terminal you can see up on the up side, intermodal terminals. The intermodal terminal is only a part of this whole logistic Eurohub Sud, where we have from the terminal, we have in the middle the match handling yard, also interesting for conventional transport. So we have then the match handling yard and of course also the logistic park. The logistic park is not only CFL, so I will not say that we are only the only users. No, we have on these logistic parks, for example, Transalliance in France, DHL are also placed there, Ampasset, so an American, CH Robinson are also there. So we had a lot of users of this logistic park, and then using then the terminal for the connection with the train. And also something interesting in the view of the future, how to build the future terminals for answering the market needs. You see on the right side, secured truck stop. So this secured truck stop is also important. It will say that we have this place defined for the truck driver. So the truck driver can have there, the pause, so the brake they have to do. They have the possibility to wash themselves. Also, we have washing machines, so they can also wash the clothes. They have the possibility to tank, of course, to sleep, to eat. So everything is there. We have also sports tools. So for the truck driver, fitness, we have fitness tools on this place for the truck driver. They would like to have some fitness. So everything is there and is secured, and you can only enter into this secure truck stop if you are using the train. So it's not open for everybody. It's only open for the trucks coming from the terminal or delivering a unit to the terminals. So, as I mentioned, so it's really integrated logistic chain. So our government took the decision 15 years ago to invest on logistics, and so that's the reason why we have these installations here in Bettembourg, and also interesting. We will see afterward, well placed because we are on crossing of the highways, so the roads, but also crossing the railway, because from Bettembourg in the middle, you have direct connection to Germany, to Belgium, and to France, going all through this marshalling yard. So our terminal, so we have a total surface of 33 hectares. The total handling capacity is 600,000 units a year. We have then 6 trucks, each with 700 meters. And for the transshipment, also I will come back on this afterward on details, we have 2 technologies for the transshipment. We have 3 country trades, not 2, because this presentation is an old one. We have 3 crane trades today, country cranes up to the 4 tracks. And we have then, we can then manage 12 combined transport train per day with these 3 cranes. And we have then 2 reach stackers, and also we have 2 horizontal tracks with, then we can also manage 16 trains per day on these 2 tracks. So we have also different facilities. Yes? You have a question? Yes, that's the lower technology.
16 ones.
Yeah, that's you parles laser là?
Oui.
Ah, si. So you can see here, here we have the 2 tracks with the lower technology, so horizontal. You have here this triangle is then with the 4 tracks here with 3 cranes. So on this picture we have only 2, but today we have 3. We have 850 parking place, so 850 parking place, because we decided to invest on this semi-trailer market. And if you are using semi-trailers, you have to take into account the place for the parking, because they are not stackable, of course. We have here 2,250 place for the containers. Here you see the marshalling yards, 28 trucks for the train composition. Yes, we have both.
Is the technology like Nikrasa?
No. That's something completely different. For the non-craneable, so it's also in the presentation, but we can go further in the discussion. Nikrasa, that's the system. It's you have then a pocket, and you have to manage this vertically.
With the pallet in between.
With the pallets. So you have then Nikrasa is one of this system that made the connection between a non-craneable trailer and a grounded crane. So you have then the craneability is on the pocket. So you have Nikrasa is one of the system. The second one is also R2L, so Vega. Vega, well known as Vega, R2L. It's also the same system. So you can then handle vertically a non-craneable trailer by using this pocket for the connection between the wagon and the trailers. We, as CFL, we are using R2L, so Vega. In parallel of our Modalor system, we have also Vega system for connection or with terminals that are not equipped with the LoR technology. For example, we have the connection to Lyon. They have no LoR technology. We are using R2L, Vega. We have the connection to Rostock in Germany. We have the connection to Kiel, also with R2L. So that it allows us also to load non-craneable trailer, but using the crane with a pocket between, so the technology between both. The difference, so it's also in the presentation, so go further. Okay. So here you have a picture. I will not go through. So what is then the discussion we have for the time being? So the typical craneable loading units are containers, swap bodies, and semi-trailers. But we have to take in the discussion into account that the semi-trailers, craneable, are only for the time being about 10% of the market. So we have then 90% of the market not craneable. And if we want to handle this on the rail, we have then to use other technologies. For example, Nikrasa, R2L, or the LoR technology, the Modalor technology. That's the reason why we have decided to have both. So,
Good decision.
please?
Good decision.
Yeah, I think so.
Difference between Modalor system and Nikrasa or Vega is that for Nikrasa or Vega you need this pallet, which can be integrated in the wagon or not. And for Modalor you don't need this pallet at all because you have another technology system.
You will see a film that we have, or a movie that we have done on the terminal with the Modalor technology. So I will not go through the time because we have also spoke about this, the difference between a gantry crane, reach decker one side, and a Modalor the other side. So this comparison is interesting. But they are not competitors. They are complementary. That's what we are saying in Bettenburg because they are complementary.
Everything that helps the motor shift is good.
Exactly. So if you see then the processes with the reach decker, also the vertical, there's this sequential transshipment, one after the other one. So in Modalor, it's almost parallel transshipment. You will see on the movie. The scalability, it's not so easy because on the vertical, you have to design the terminal and to build it. When you have built your terminal, it's there. You cannot easy change the design of the terminal. It's not the case with the Modalor system. You can begin with 4 stations, for example, and you can then afterward develop the technology with adding more and more platform. If the market is there, if you have then a positive results, it's really not difficult to add stations after the first one. The parking, so you have you need parking for the semi-trailer, and the difference is that on the modular system, the parking places are along the rail tracks. They are included in the design of the platform. For the time, we are thinking that about 3 hours to unload and load a 700-meter long train, and for modular 1 hour for loading and unloading a 700-meter train, and you will see on the movie how it works. Capacity on the similar surface on a vertical handling 12 combined transport per day, with modular 16 train a day. The resources you need, also something that it's always forgotten when we speak about the comparison between vertical and horizontal. On vertical handling with a semi-trailer, you need 2 persons on the same place for handling the semi-trailers. It was also one of the recommendations from the GNS procedure after the Great Belt Bridge accident. And on a modular system, you need 40% less people because they are doing the same job together. You will see how it works also on the movie. The constraints with a country crane, you have to stop the operation during a strong wind. So we have regularly difficulties. For example, in Bettembourg, we have in 1 year, we have about 4 or 5 days. We cannot work with the Guanti crane because of the strong wind that we have. And it's not the case with the modular system because it's horizontal. You can operate whatever the weather conditions are. The damages, also interesting to take into account, the damages. The spreader on a crane or on a ridge decker can damage the semi-trailers. And with the horizontal, we have no damages because the trailer is going on the wagon. So we have then a transshipment, a smoothie transshipment you will see also on the movie. And then after the last point is that the terminal itself. Most of the time in Europe, the existing terminals, they are designed for combined transport containers, and they are not optimized for semi-trailer. For example, with the parking place that you need. And that's the difference with the modular system. The design is made for the semi-trailer, is dedicated for this. So that's the completely different approach. So in Bettembourg, we have the coexistence. So we have both vertical and horizontal transshipment. And we can then use the best of each solution for each train relation that we have. We can decide it together with the partners to go on one or the other one of the solutions. But we have to take into account that in Europe, plus minus 85% of the conventional vertical terminal capacities are already in use. So that's also something interesting in the discussion we have with the Commission and with UIRR, for example. So it's a fact. 85% of the capacity is already in use in Europe. So we need then more efficient usage of the conventional terminal. We will see with how we could do, or we could go with the digitalization. And vertical loading are well optimized, but for handling containers, stackability, standardizing, and automation. So we have then the vertical terminal are efficient use, but for containers. And for the horizontal, we have to take into account that about 90% today, 90% of the semi-trailer in Europe are not craneable. The non-craneable offers an additional plus minus 500 kilo payload against the craneable semi-trails because they are lighter. And the wear of a non-craneable semi-trail is lower than craneable due to the lifting process that we have. So not all the semi-trailer can become craneable. So there are type of semi-trailer that will never been craneable. Tank trailers, for example. So in Bettembourg, as we said, we have then the vertical handling, so 3 cranes. You see on the right picture, the third crane is already in use. And we have then optimized the use of the crane with a remote operation stations. It will say that in Bettembourg, the crane operator are not on the crane. They are on the floor. They have an office as all the other operators. And they are sitting, you can see on the left picture, they are sitting before 360 degrees picture, so screens, and they are operating the cranes with joystick from the office and not from the crane.
Gamers.
Yeah, gamers. They are gamers. Huh? So it's very interesting to see this working. So they are not on the crane. They are in the office. So about the modular technology, I will not go too much in detail because I'm not here for doing advertising for modular, but I think you know, everybody knows how it, so the modular is French technology. The company is situated in Dupikheim near Strasbourg. So our terminal is equipped with 2 tracks with 700 meters. And per track, we can load and unload 42 semi-trailers in one operation. You will see on the movie. And we are also then using, so that the use of the modular in Luxembourg is mainly non-craneable. Of course, we have also craneable semi-trailer using the train because they are using the connection and not the technology. That's also important to say. The modular is also open for craneable trailers, of course. But we have the connection to Le Boulou and to Barcelona. That's the reason why we have some customers as LKW Walter, for example, and they are using semi-trailers craneable, but they are also using the train, Bettembourg, Le Boulou, for going to Spain. So it's not the technology they are using the connection. So, and we have, for the time being, different places where we have the modular system in use, in place and in use. In Poland, we have a train connection with Poznan. In Poznan, they have, we have no picture here. So in Poznan, they have really a little platform with only 4 stations. So 4 stations, is we say, they can handling in one operation 2 wagons, so 4 semi-trailers. And in our train, from Bettembourg to Poznan, we have 8 wagon modular, so 16 places. And when the train arrives in Poznan, they cut off the train. One side is going on the vertical handling, and the other part, the 8 wagons we have, they are going on the platform. And they are loading and unloading all the wagons 2 by 2 in parallel. So that's what is really interesting. They are doing this in parallel. Vertical handling and horizontal handling, so no losing time. And then we go back to Bettembourg. They have 4 stations for the time being, but they have also foreseen to have the possibility to develop with more stations as the 4 they have in the beginning. So we have also in Le Boulou. In Le Boulou, there is a platform with 350 meters, so half a train. In Sète, also in the south of France. And you have also in Calais, in the port of Calais, 10 platforms, so 5 wagons in one operation. So you can see here some pictures. And there are also other projects in plan. Tu peux aller sur YouTube ici?
Normalement, oui.
Pourquoi tu fais ça?
Je sais.
So we will show you the movie. I hope so. YouTube, tu vas sur YouTube d'abord? Non, YouTube. Okay. CFL multimodal. Ah, non, t'es pas dedans. Et là, tu as... Il descend là. Non, continue. Voilà, celui-là. Yeah. So here you will see how it works when the train is loaded and unloaded.
These are normal symmetry, wasn't it?
Yeah, they're only symmetries, yes.
And normal, not special, nothing specific.
No. Each we have all the types.
The rail motorway is characterized by a specific technology that allows the loading of craneable and non-craneable semi-trailers. Special rail wagons were developed for this purpose. Each wagon has two spaces called pockets that can pivot by 30 degrees thanks to a hydraulic device located in the rail tracks. This makes it possible for the terminal tractors to pull the semi-trailers onto the rail motorway wagon. You can observe the impressive length of the two rail motorway platforms. Each is 700 meters long, which represents 40 semi-trailers on 20 wagons per train. The parallel loading of the semi-trailers, enabled by the horizontal handling of the motor-lower platform, generates a significant gain in productivity. Up to 16 trains per day can be handled on this platform. It is important to note that currently 90% of all semi-trailers in Europe are non-craneable. The rail motorway therefore offers an alternative transport method for these semi-trailers, which would otherwise travel by road.
So that's how it works. And if you have seen, so we are using our... Hopla. Ferme-le complètement. Ça t'es sûr qu'à part démarrer. So we are loading and unloading with our terminal trucks. We have 6 Terberg, so that's the mark we have in Luxembourg. So six terminal trucks, and we are loading and unloading in parallel with the 6 trucks, the complete train. If you have seen, 50 minutes for a 700-meter train. Okay. Ah oui, je peux. So, and here you have a map of all the modular terminals in projects and in discussion. So the green are already projects, concrete projects, and the red one are in discussions.
Dark blue here.
Yes, the blue one is not in. They are already in use, in operation. The blue one are in operation. Yeah, they are in operation. Okay, so then we spoke today about digitalization of the logistic chain. So what we have done in Bettembourg as an example, so we have then fully automatic solutions for each part of the job done as much as possible, as far as possible. For example, we have a gate automation. So when the truck driver is coming in into the terminal, so you have a terminal station, so a screen, and he has then to to enter to the code of the plate number and so on, and also the order number, the booking number. So they have to enter this on the screen, and then you will have access on the terminal. We have also the crane operation system, also fully automatic. We have the rail operation control. So when the train is leaving the terminal, we have also, you will see it, a control, quality control. And we have the vehicle booking system where the truck company can use for booking directly online a place on the train. So the optical character recognition, that's a system with camera. So we have then an automatic recognition of the unit. So when you enter...
ILO code.
Oh, ILO code. No? So if the ILO code, and so we have also pictures. So for each loading unit coming into the terminal or going out of the terminal, we take pictures. So that if we have done afterward a claim about some damages, we can directly see if the damages was already done before entering in the terminal or not, and so on. So we can have the following up of all the operations we have done, because we have this optical recognition when the loading unit is coming into the terminals by road, and we have also an OCR upon the railway track when the train leaves the terminal. So if we have damages between, we know that it's coming from the terminal. So you can see here example of pictures. Also we have then the ILO code, and we have also pictures for each side of the loading unit. So you can see here a scan. So in Bettemburg we have then a bridge with scan. So we also scan all the loading unit coming into the terminal. So the benefits, assets feasibility, operational control, safety, and security. So here you have then the truck automated gates. In Bettemburg we have the same, but we have up on this place we have a roof, so that all the operations are done if we have rain, are done not under the rain or the snow. So the truck driver is protected. So we have then the gate kiosk, as I mentioned before. So when the truck driver is coming in, so he had a screen, and he has then to tip the booking number, the plate number of the unit, and the terminal operation system recognize the loading unit, the booking, so that we know exactly on which train the loading unit will leave the terminal, so that we have also that optimized the terminal operations. So by entering the booking, the TOS, so the terminal operation system, know exactly which train in which time, so that we avoid handlings in the terminal, because we know exactly the life, so what will be the next step. The same with, whereas with this inventory with the rail OCR, when the train is entering on the terminal, we have the recognition, so that we know exactly which units are on the train, so that the terminal operation system know exactly the next step. If this unit will be picked up with the trailers, or if this unit will go further with train, and so on. So everything is known and optimized on the terminal, so that we are really decreasing the number of units, the handling, sorry, the number of handlings. So here you have the pictures of about the structure of our terminal management system, so the TOS or the TMS. So we have then the automatic recognition on the gates, we have then the train gates, and we have the operating system. So there are the structure that we have in the terminal, completely digitalized and automatic. So
We try to harmonize this on a European level, so to have not a different TOS in every terminal, but to have at least a recommendation for a harmonized one.
exactly. So, and here you have then an example of the screen. So the screen that we have, that our operator see. So you have the screen, the picture of the terminal itself with different colors, empty trailers, loaded trailers, and so on, and also different screens about the booking, so the next steps, and so on. So that was the presentation of our terminal. So we have opened this terminal in July 2017, so 5 years ago. We have then begun with 2 cranes. Today we have a third one because the volumes are increasing every day. The last information I can give you is that from 2 weeks, or in the end of November, we will also begin a new train connection with a direct train to Turkey, to Halkali. So that's the next, the last information, the last news.
Breaking news.
The ranking news about our terminal. So in 2 weeks, we will begin a new train connection to Halkali. So thank you for the attention.
Thank you, Eric, for this very complete presentation and comprehensive, and also, but let's say, speaking presentation. Also, very very concrete examples of what is happening. I was just wondering, the OCR and the RFD scans, are they from the terminal or from network? Because I know there is quite some discussion in the Belgium context where there are also a number of operators wanting to install the gates, but that network operators refusing them because there is a discussion on the responsibility if something should go wrong. So
They are the property of terminals.
yeah, so they are within the network of the.
They are managed. They have been paid, operate, and managed by the terminal. But we have, of course, the control, the safety control from the railway undertaking done. So we have a double control. So we have a control from the terminal side, but of course, before the train leaves the terminal, we have also a control. And also, when the train leaves with the semi-trailer with the lower, we have one safety manager from the railway undertaking staying in the end of the terminal. So we have a bridge, and this bridge is exactly the same gauge as we have on the railway, in the infrastructure, so that we can see if the gauge is okay or not when the train is leaving the terminal. So we have one safety person from the railway undertaking, not the terminal, the railway undertaking, staying there and look if the gauge is okay or not.
So it's always a matter of responsibility, and
That's what I
sometimes the terminals are belonging to the infrastructure manager, so then it's the affair of the infrastructure manager, but in general, it is the terminal itself that is responsible.
Okay, thanks you. Actually, this brings us to the end of this, to me at least, interesting day, which we presented this morning, the report. As said, the report itself will be digitally available by the end of this month. Also, these presentations, they will for sure be available within the coming days. So the entire session has been recorded, and we will put them online, I assume, somewhere early next week, with also a small impression video. If there are any questions in the meanwhile or afterwards, of course, please do come back. And there are already questions. Yes, go ahead.
Yes, I was just wondering about the checking of the loads within a container or a trailer. I can imagine this raises questions about the confidentiality. Normally, I believe you're not supposed to know, the transporter is not supposed to know what's in the container for commercial reasons, what the freight is. And you're sort of trying to get power that usually is only reserved to the customs. The customs are allowed to go in and look what's there. So I don't know if you have any, if you've already solved that problem or not, but it's one that came to my mind. And the other question was, in the film, the wagons, the lore wagons turning, did they turn in sequence for the film, or do they do that anyway, in sequence like that?
So they are always doing the same.
Okay.
So they are open automatically. So when the train arrives, so first we have done a system for placing the train exactly on the right place, and then we push the button. So we have only one button to push, and all the pockets are turning together. So the difference you have with the time is because we need air, so compressed air, and we have to go from one to the other one. So that's the reason why you have a difference. But on the operations, we have only one button. So everything is automatic.
So then this progression was good for the film, but actually
it's always
it's just for the air.
it's not for the film. Yes, it's not for the film. That's always the same.
Okay.
And it's the same if you have 4 wagons, 10 wagons. So that's the same. So the system is automatic, but the sequence is before, because the first wagon receives more air as the second one. So that's the little bit difference. But they are open together in one operation. Because we have
That's
also,
why it looks like a ballet.
yeah, but also for closing the train, it's also the same. So closing the train is also automatic. So when the pockets are turning, it's also automatic. And we have to do this by automatic because we have also the safety control, the securing. It's included in this procedure. And if you are doing this manually, it could be that you have some difficulties, and we close the pocket on manual. It's possible, of course. It's possible, but then you are not as secure as it will be if you are doing this automatically. So, but we are everything is automatic. Yes.
And the police,
Yeah.
the customs like entry into the loading units, is that the first question I had? Yeah.
Yes, of course. Everywhere the authority have the possibility to control. We have also in our terminal, the customs are present there. So we have in our office, so we have 3 buildings, and in one of the buildings we have the customs present there, and also they do some tests. So they ask to open the container number XY, and they are going on the terminal and they're opening the doors. That they are authorized to do this, but we as operator, we are not authorized to open the container. So it was a discussion we had with our lawyer, and it's clear we have a seal, and this seal is closed, and if we want to open, we have to ask the authorization to receive the authorization of the transport company to open the doors. We cannot decide by our own to open the doors.
So what you're saying is this is a problem with the current law. You're supposed
It could
to
be a
check
problem.
something you're not allowed to check.
I'm listening to the radio when I'm home, and the radio I'm listening give every hour or half hour some information on the traffic on the road. Every half hour. And you cannot imagine how often I heard on this radio, you have to take care take care because on the on the highway 411 in Belgium, some truck has lost its material. Often we are listening this and we are hearing this. On the railway, it's not possible. It cannot be. You cannot imagine that a train running will lost his material by crossing a station. So it's not possible. So we have safety system in the railway is higher, really higher, as it would be on the road sector. So I have also seen the statistics in the Vosges, in France, for the trucks, the control, the customs control of the trucks, the weight, the overweighting of the trucks when they are transporting wood. It's crazy. It's crazy. 80%, more than 80% are not correct loaded. They have overweight. Yeah, no,
And
overweight.
secured, yeah,
Overweight.
both.
And the statistic you can see on internet, they have also trucks, they are running with more than 20 tons overloaded. 20 tons overloaded.
So just to understand, are you complaining that you're being held responsible for something you can't do anything about? Or are you saying the law has to be changed so we can carry out these checks inside the loading units?
No, I don't say that the law has to be changed. What I say is that all the actors has to take the responsibility. So we have then to have more and more discussions, even more and more the people aware about what they are doing, from the shippers to the transport company and so on. So another example. 1 year ago, a Polish, sorry for the Polish colleagues, so a Polish truck company has made advertising because they have run a truck from China to Poland within 11 days. So, and they have published pictures. So, they have published pictures of the loading into the truck. So it was crazy what we have seen there. No lashing, no securing, nothing. So, you know, when we speak about logistic chain and transport, we have 3 parameters. The time, the money, and the quality. And it's really complicated to reach the 3. A higher quality, a lower price, and a lower transit time. It cannot be. If you have a lower transit time and a lower price, you will have a bad quality. If you have a high quality and a lower transit time, you will have a high price. You know? So that's the 3 parameters you have to take into account.
Yes, go ahead.
Regarding the non-craneable trailers, semi-trailers, they normally don't have a ELO code plate. How do you identify them? With a license plate in the back, or?
So this aspect is in discussion for the time being. It's in discussion. So
we have a very clear opinion on that. We should have an ELO code on all the trailers.
Yeah.
Very simple.
So, first of all, within the UIC experts group, we are working on the definition of a leaflet. So the last name, so the old name was leaflet. Today is IRS, International Rail Solutions. So we are working on the publishing IRS for the horizontal loading units that we are using. Not only the semi-trailers, but also we have different transshipment technologies in horizontal, for example, HCTS, if you know, Abrol Container Transport System, where we have the Box Tango in Switzerland, and so on. So we are working, we will begin in January next year with a new IRS definition. And one of these aspects is, you are right, having a codification plate also for the non-craneable trailers. It will help all the chain, the logistic chain. Our partner from Dassault is gone, but you can imagine if you had a ILU code, identification code of all the units, then it will be easier for all the different tasks, the works done all through the chain. But not only in combined transport, also when you are on the road and coming into a logistic center. Or today, the logistic center are closed with barriers. They are secured. You have to open this. So if you are coming in with the ILU code, it will be easier in a digitalized.
It's a basis for digitalization. That's the point.
And very surprising, 3 weeks ago, we have received a proposal from Germany, from a German project, launched by Logistic Competence Center, LKZ, with a lot of different truck companies and trailer producers as Schmitz Cargobühl, Krone, Kögel, and they have proposed to include also a codification plate for the semi-trailer non-craneable. It came from the market. It was really surprising. Huh? Julia,
Let's do it.
Yes, we will include it. So we have a IRS definition defining the codification of the units. That's the 50596-6. So 50596-6. We are then the codification of the units, and we will integrate this demand for the next edition, so that it will be allowed to have a codification plate also for non-craneable semi-trailer. It will help all through the logistic chain.
If you go to Calais, for example, and you have a look at the terminal where all these trailers from the island are coming in, they only have the license plate, and it's very, very small. And once it is in the pocket wagon, you can't see it anymore. So it's much easier to have something on the loading unit which is really recognizable and which also is recognizable by the OCR.
Yeah. And also the codification plate, and you will have then the data regarding the loading unit, the length, the width, the height, so that you don't have anymore to control it. Today, when we will have in all the terminals using horizontal transshipment, not only in Bettemburg, but also the Roller de Landstraße in Swiss and in Austria, they have to control every loading unit before loading it to assure that the gauge is not engaged. So they have to control it. You can imagine how much time, how much human resources it needs for loading a roller train, for example. So if we would have a codification plate, we don't have anymore to control because everything is codified. So.
At the end of the day, you want to be economic. And if you look at these ecumenical trains that you run, the Catholic and Protestant ones, you just mentioned to Poland, where you have vertical and horizontal on the same train, it's impossible to do it, to make it economic, if it's not really the same standards.
Exactly. But we are working on this within the expert group of the UIC on a demand coming from Germany, so from the road sector. Interesting.
Again, proving that we are not an isle, but we are not only willing, but actually doing also, working together amongst and between modes and within all the different actors of the supply chain, which I think we have also proven again today, where we have again the report of UIRR and UIC together, one of the nice examples of our collaboration. Unless there are any urgent or any burning topics again, I would like to close it off here.